What do you know, kid? Decisions like that should be made by president, and it's me. You should know who you are. Don't misunderstand your position. You should be fired, but there's a store that's short on staff, so it's convenient. Starting tomorrow, you'll be working there. Take this time to reflect on how you defied me. Mr. Todd decided on the spot to transfer me to a rural store after I directly negotiated with him over a certain matter. And at that new location, my beautiful boss Samantha faced a crisis. Who are you? Samantha, my beautiful boss, was shocked as I saved her dramatically. And from here, an unexpected life unfolded before us. My name is Shane. My parents both worked, but since I had many siblings, as the eldest son, I supported the family by delivering newspapers when I was in the middle school and working part-time at a local fast food chain when in the high school. After finishing my part-time job, I would study at home, take care of my younger siblings, and go to bed late at night. Despite the busy days, I never felt it was a burden. Wow! I overslept. On days I couldn't wake up on time and overslept, my parents and siblings would let me sleep just long enough to not be late for school. And they'd prepare breakfast and even my lunchbox. If we earned more, you wouldn't have to work so hard. I'm sorry, Shane. This is the least we can do to support you, but we really appreciate you. Thank you so much, Shane. Thanks, Shane. My mom and siblings expressed their gratitude for my help with the household, but I was the one who felt grateful. It was because of my warm family that I could work hard. And while it felt like an exaggeration to be praised for doing what was expected as the eldest son, I appreciated having my family every day. Thank you very much for hiring me. After graduating high school, I got a job at the fast food restaurant where I worked part-time. Because of my experience having worked since high school, I quickly got promoted to a manager. However, problems arose right after my promotion. Managing older staff was challenging. He's so cocky for someone younger. We don't have to follow his instructions, right? He's younger than us. If you're going to ask someone to do something, you should be older. He's still in his 20s. They made these remarks loudly enough for me to hear, but I pretended not to notice. I understood why they felt that way. Even though I had worked since high school, they probably still saw me as inexperienced. Being a manager didn't mean I should be complacent. I had to bear with it until I earned everyone's respect. Determined, I used their criticism as motivation to excel as a manager. If there's anything I'm lacking, please tell me directly. I'll do whatever it takes. Yikes. What's with you all of a sudden? Sometimes, I approached my older subordinates trying to find out what my issues were. They were known for their constant sarcasm at work and were called Snarky 3. Kyle was the leader. He was surrounded by Ken and Tyler. As I interacted with them, my shortcomings became apparent. So, I think it would be better if we did it this way. But you always do it that way, right? Kyle means that might be good for us, but not for the customers. Hey, you're just taking notes, but are you really listening to us? Of course, I'm listening. Even though you're part-timers, your advice is like that of experienced managers. It's very helpful. Thank you so much. Hey! Are you praising us or mocking us? At first, they were quite surprised by my proactive approach. But seeing me seriously taking notes and listening, they eventually stopped making sarcastic remarks. Initially, they seemed unapproachable, but I discovered that they were not as mean-spirited as others had said. They listened and gave good advice. Good management requires more than just my own efforts. Support from others is essential. As a manager, I couldn't mess up. Bridging the gap with employees and listening to their advice was crucial. I saw their realistic advice as a positive thing and managed the store by valuing both customers and staff, gradually increasing sales. A few years later, I was promoted to area manager at a young age. Even here, other area managers, jealous of my rapid promotion, tried to undermine me by hiding meeting materials, but I didn't give up. No, it's more accurate to say that I was able not to give up. Because. So, how did the meeting go? You're young, so you were probably targeted and harassed, right? It can't be helped. I'm still inexperienced. They're jealous and attack you because they don't understand your humility. Yeah, but even you were like that at first, Kyle. Can you really say that? Shut up. You guys were the ones who agreed with me, so don't act all high and mighty. Though the conversation veered off and they were just chatting with each other, the snarky three now supports me from behind the scenes, which keeps me motivated. Thanks to these people, I could easily let go of the tough times. Even after becoming close with them, I didn't just favor them and listen to their suggestions out of bias. Their criticisms were realistic and helped improve the store, providing valuable insights. All I did as a manager was bring out their potential. I haven't yet been able to offer the kind of brilliant ideas and improvements they did. That's why I'm still inexperienced. To avoid just having a title, I need to keep learning from these people and grow. You were the only manager who listened to us. Really? Is that true? Yeah, it is. So, let's keep working hard for the store. Yes. Thank you for your support. You use formal language at work, but you don't have to during breaks. You're so dedicated and serious about your work, Shane. And so, over time, our relationship deepened beyond just manager and employees, becoming more like colleagues. However, one day, we never imagined that our bond and the efforts we put in would be taken away instantly. One day, Kyle was suddenly fired by the company. The reason was a fight with Mr. Todd during his store visit, leading to his immediate dismissal. Ken and Tyler, who stood up for Kyle, were also fired for the same reason. I couldn't process what had just happened, but before they left the store, I listened to Kyle and the others. Apparently, Mr. Todd looked down on them for being part-timers. But Kyle and the others provided excellent service to customers and worked as hard as full-time employees. Discriminating against them for being part-timers was wrong. Anger towards Mr. Todd welled up inside me. My body trembled with rage. Seeing me, Kyle remained calm, as if he understood. We each have our reasons for choosing part-time work. If that's denied, we can't stay here. That's too harsh. As your manager, it's my duty to protect you from unfair dismissal, even if it means opposing Mr. Todd. Shane. If you do that, you'll be fired too. I don't care. I said firmly. As a manager, I couldn't overlook my subordinates being unfairly dismissed. I will directly protest to Mr. Todd. With that, I immediately called Mr. Todd back to the meeting room and tried to convince him to take back Kyle and the others' dismissals. Do you plan to continue this method of firing part-timers based on personal preferences, keeping only yes-men around you? What do you know, kid? Decisions like that are made by me, the president. You should know who you are. Don't misunderstand your position as an area manager. Stunned by his harsh words, I lost my voice. Mr. Todd was completely unwilling to listen. You should be fired too, but there's a store that's short on staff, so it's convenient. Starting tomorrow, you'll be working there. Take this time to reflect on how you defied me. And so, because of my direct protest, I was transferred to a small, unpopular store as a regular employee. It was unbearable to think that this was Mr. Todd's way of not outright firing me. I lost my manager position that I had worked so hard to build, and I was assigned to work as a regular employee at the new location. I didn't regret standing up, but I couldn't protect Kyle and the others. I couldn't help but wish I had more power. When I told my family about the situation, they didn't blame me because it wasn't my fault. Even though my income would be lower than before, they were truly understanding and supportive. Feeling guilty yet incredibly grateful, I faced the next morning with resentment toward Mr. Todd and went to the store where I had been demoted. A woman who said she had been contacted by Mr. Todd welcomed me inside. Nice to meet you, Shane. I'm the manager, Samantha. Looking forward to working with you. Thank you. Nice to meet you too. At that store, the manager was a beautiful woman named Samantha. The staff at this store, where those demoted were gathered, were all unmotivated, but Samantha worked diligently. I wondered why Samantha had been demoted. She seemed to be well regarded and a great team leader, so why would someone like her be demoted? No, I shouldn't dwell on that. I should follow her example and work hard. I snapped back to reality, focused on my job, and returned to my duties. You're quite a fast worker. Seeing my work attitude, Samantha wondered why I was at this demotion store, but she had no way of knowing. As the busy days went by, Samantha began to speak to me more often. "Here, this is for you. Thanks for your hard work today." "Thank you, Samantha. I felt bad for always receiving things so often from you. You've been such a help at work recently." "This is just a thank you, so don't worry about it." "I do worry. So please, let me do the same back to you someday." "You're so earnest, Shane." "Then help me with my work again sometime." "Of course, I'd be happy to." We complemented each other's weaknesses and worked together. Thus, we grew close as work partners and trusted each other. A few months later, one day, Samantha received a call from Mr. Todd. "Gather 10 part-timers as opening staff by the end of the day." "I'm counting on you, Samantha." 10 part-timers by the end of the day. Samantha answered Mr. Todd's call, and her voice rose in surprise. That was the unreasonable demand to gather 10 part-timers urgently by the end of the day for a new store opening in the area. Finding 10 part-timers in this area in a single day was an impossible task. Mr. Todd even threatened her with "You're fired if you can't do it." After ending the call, Samantha was at a loss, holding her head in her hands. It reminded me of the time when Kyle and the others were unfairly dismissed by Mr. Todd. I couldn't protect them and ended up getting demoted. Would I have to face the same frustration again, unable to protect anyone? No, I wouldn't let Mr. Todd have his way any longer. I came up with an idea. "Samantha, leave his demand to me." Samantha looked surprised but believed in me, though she couldn't hide her anxiety as I left to recruit part-timers. But this was the perfect job for me. Regarding this matter, I felt it was almost a fated clash with Mr. Todd. I knew the time had finally come to settle it. Hours later, as the deadline approached, I returned to the store. Holding a stack of resumes, Samantha's already large eyes widened even more in astonishment. "Shane, who exactly are you?" Her amazement was understandable. I had gathered all 10 opening staff resumes, meeting Mr. Todd's demand. But that wasn't all. Among the resumes were names like Kyle, Ken, and Tyler. The names of everyone I had worked with before were there. The gathered part-timers were all pros, having had similar experiences to mine. They had worked at my previous store but were unfairly dismissed by Mr. Todd after I was demoted. They all gathered because they said they wanted to help me. Thanks to them, I could save Samantha. I was really grateful. And among them was Snarky 3 as well. "I never thought the day would come when I could work with you again," Kyle said, clearly pleased that I had called him, Ken, and Tyler back for part-time work. After Mr. Todd fired them, I helped them find their next part-time jobs and assisted with their resumes, so we kept in touch. They agreed to join his opening staff because they preferred to work in a familiar environment where they could use their knowledge from our previous store. "Shane, these people are..." Seeing the gathered part-timers, Samantha, still surprised, spoke up, and I, as if remembering, raised my voice and introduced them to her. "Sorry, Samantha, I haven't introduced them yet. These are the part-timers who used to work with me at my previous store." "Your previous store? You were a manager?" Samantha was even more surprised. I thought I had mentioned it before, but it seemed I hadn't. As I struggled to explain the situation, Snarky 3 quickly started to speak. "What's the deal, man? You didn't tell this beautiful Samantha about it? I guess you're not one to think about these things." "Shane, I really like that about you. Is that a confession?" "Seriously, Shane, you didn't mention working with this beautiful Samantha before." No fair sneaking ahead. As Kyle, Ken, and Tyler pulled us into their playful banter, we all started laughing. Since work would start the next day, we wrapped up the introductions and job assignments and then called it a day. I was looking forward to working with everyone again, but as we were leaving, Samantha called me aside, saying she had something to discuss. We walked home together. And she began to speak seriously. "Actually, I was demoted here because I directly confronted Mr. Todd," she began. According to her, Samantha was the type to confront Mr. Todd head-on if she disagreed. Mr. Todd wanted to reduce the use of fresh vegetables. But Samantha was objective to his idea, saying that would cause the reduce of customers' satisfaction. That's why she was demoted. Even though she explained that fresh and tasty products were necessary to keep customers returning, Mr. Todd didn't listen. Samantha had also been a manager at her previous store, and hearing her story made me feel a surge of emotions. It seemed she felt the same, as tears welled up in her eyes when she recalled the past. But Samantha was a very strong woman. Seeing her wipe her tears and smile at me, I felt a deep admiration for her strength. As we continued talking, she started to enjoy the conversation more. "So, you went through the same thing, Shane. No wonder you seemed more capable than the other staff. Appearances can be deceiving. You'll be even more surprised tomorrow. Kyle and the others are much more skilled than I am. You'll see. You're so humble, Shane. It's not easy to bring people together like that. You're young but very humble," just as Kyle said. Seeing the usually composed Samantha laugh softly gave her an unexpectedly innocent look. It made my heart skip a beat. Oh, she laughs like this. She's quite charming. Seeing her smile made my cheeks feel warm, but the cold night breeze helped cool me down. Knowing each other's backgrounds and realizing we were in similar situations made us feel closer. And without knowing that Mr. Todd had been planning to fire both of us at the same time. However, Samantha's successful submission of the 10 opening staff resumes didn't let him make it. Realizing that among the opening staff were those he had unjustly fired before, like Kyle, Mr. Todd must have felt humiliated in front of his yes-men. The next day, the new store smoothly opened with the experienced team working efficiently. Their excellent service and delivery earned praise from customers, boosting everyone's morale. In just a few months, the new store managed by Samantha became highly reputable, attracting more customers. She managed both stores, while I also flexibly worked between them, supporting the part-timers. Meanwhile, Mr. Todd, who didn't value his outspoken subordinates, continued to see a high turnover of talented staff, even years later. A few years later, Samantha, our team, and I finally resigned from a company that didn't value its customers or staff. Wow, quitting feels so liberating. This must be what it means to end on a high note, Samantha said, stretching beside me. Kyle and the others became a great asset, and although Samantha's store had excellent sales and reputation, we couldn't stand Mr. Todd's methods anymore. We resigned in preparation for a new project. But I'm so excited about the future. Let's share and talk about our ideas and plan together. Wait a minute. Don't forget about us. Snarky 3 leaned forward from behind me and said to her. She seemed very surprised, as if she had unconsciously been talking only to me. Oh. I didn't realize you all were here too. That's right. We just quit the company together, and you rely on Shane just because he was the manager. We were doing great too, Samantha. It's too harsh. Oh well, she did spend more time with Shane than with us. Still, she shouldn't just ignore our existence. Ken and Tyler, who both had feelings for Samantha, were quite shocked at being not noticed. On the other hand, Kyle seemed uninterested in Samantha. He was just watching me with amusement. Why did I feel like he could see right through me? To escape from Kyle's gaze, I cleared my throat and took over the conversation from Samantha. Anyway, let's work hard to establish our new competing company. When everyone responded to my rallying call, we all shouted, yeah. Yes, the plan was to establish a rival company. The next day, after quitting the company, we shared ideas, assigned roles, and worked on raising funds and gathering staff for the new company. We passionately presented our blueprint to the bank, securing loans, and invited those who had helped as opening staff to join us. Our ideal store would offer fresh and safe food for customers and a place where staff can develop their skills while valuing their individuality. During this time, we heard about the downfall of Mr. Todd's restaurant chain. One by one, the stores in the area closed. Even with multiple discount campaigns suggested by Mr. Todd's yes-men, customers only came on discount days. The chain became known as a cheap and poor quality store, leading to its inevitable bankruptcy as Mr. Todd struggled with finances. Later, we heard that no banks would lend to Mr. Todd, and his restaurant chain finally went bankrupt. Did you hear? Mr. Todd's company went bankrupt. Apparently, he's working a manual labor job now. He looked down on us for being part-timers, and now he's the one working as a part-timer. It's ironic. Kyle and the others talked about his downfall. The backstory was that even his yes men had all handed in their resignation letters at the last moment. They had only been acting to please Mr. Todd and resigned once the company was on the verge of bankrupt. Without anyone left to support him, there was no choice but close the company. Some of the yes men, regretting their past loyalty to Mr. Todd, even begged to work for our company to do better themselves. Samantha and I decided to accept them through interviews. Yes, everyone should be treated equally and have their individuality respected. If someone is in need and wants to improve themselves, I want to help them. I want to cooperate wherever I can. Just like my family, Kyle, and Samantha have done for me. I realized once again how fortunate I was to have such supportive people around me. Without them, I don't know where I would have been ended up. I was able to grow, thanks to everyone's support. And with this clean break from Mr. Todd, I felt a refreshing sense of freedom. A few years passed, and we steadily expanded the restaurant chain we had envisioned. Samantha, I have something to tell you. What's this all of a sudden? What do you want to talk about? While Samantha had been my partner in business, over time I had developed feelings for her and decided to confess. I felt strangely nervous. Not being used to this, I even felt a bit of pressure. After all, she was the beautiful boss everyone admired. How pathetic to feel this way after bringing it up myself. Noticing my unusual tension, Samantha laughed softly and began to reminisce. Come to think of it, since you joined my store, it's been one surprise after another. But it's because of you, Shane, that we could create the company we dreamed of. Thank you for guiding us. Expressing her gratitude with a smile. Samantha looked more beautiful than ever to me. And with newfound courage, I finally opened my mouth to convey my feelings. I couldn't have come this far without your support. Thank you for sticking with me. So, if you're willing, I'd like you to be my partner not just at work, but also in private life. I extended my hand to Samantha. My heart was pounding, wondering if she would take my hand, but Samantha looked at me with a joyful expression. Yes. I'd be happy to, she said, taking my hand. We officially started dating as partners both at work and for private. Look at you two, so in love. With Shane, there's no doubt she'll be happy. Shane, make sure you make our Samantha happy. Snarky 3 suddenly appeared, congratulating us, and Ken and Tyler chimed in with their usual banter. Samantha and I looked at each other and laughed. They were not making snarky comments anymore. I was truly grateful. Being blessed by them and receiving their advice and support was essential for me. Of course, I take full responsibility for making Samantha happy. And having overcome work challenges together, I believe we can face anything as a couple. What I can't do alone, we can accomplish together, no matter what. I've been working diligently for 20 years. One day, out of the blue, I received a notice of termination despite my dedication to the company. Congratulations, Mark. You've been selected for workforce reduction. We've hired a top-notch new recruit, so you're being let go. Thanks for your hard work. I stood speechless at the sudden declaration from my manager, Evan. It's unfortunate, but that's reality. You should regret your foolishness for opposing me. That's good. What? He was taken aback by my response and stopped speaking. But soon he regained his composure and flashed that nasty, smug grin. No matter how tough you talk, you're still fired. Pack your things and leave. He walked away laughing loudly, but he truly understood the meaning of my words the next day. My name is Mark Davis. I've been working at Carson Manufacturing, which makes industrial machinery, for 20 years. Before I knew it, I had become 43 years old, focusing solely on my work and working tirelessly. Even though I've been around for a long time, I'm still a regular employee without any position. That's because I love tinkering with machines more than anything and wanted to stay on the production floor forever. There were several opportunities for promotion, but I always explained my situation and had the promotion deferred. For me, having the environment to freely create machines was more important than the salary. However, such happy days came to an abrupt end yesterday. Despite my 20 years of dedicated service, I was suddenly given a termination notice yesterday. Looking back, Evan becoming my supervisor was the direct cause. All my previous supervisors were hardworking and respectable mentors. They would cover for my mistakes and collaborate with other departments to solve problems when consulted. Such a culture allowed Carson Manufacturing to gain a certain level of trust in the industry, despite being a small company. But that changed when the CEO was replaced, and his nephew Evan was transferred here. I won't tolerate the lax atmosphere of this workplace. From now on, every employee must give their all to achieve results. Evan declared this abruptly in his first address. At first, we employees were confused but tried to accept his demands. Needless to say, everyone at the factory has been passionate about machine manufacturing. Without being told, we were already trying our best to get the job done. But Evan, without understanding the situation on the ground, kept demanding higher sales. Without any concrete instructions, we were constantly reprimanded, and I finally decided to speak directly to him. Evan, everyone is doing their best every day. But if you ask us to improve our performance without specific directions, we don't understand how. If you guys working on the ground don't understand, how should I know? Mr. Carson boasted that you are excellent employees. If you're so talented, you should be able to figure it out without my instructions. No matter how hard I tried to communicate, he was always like this, making conversation impossible. Through persistent discussions, I realized that he was completely inexperienced. It seems Mr. Carson called his nephew, who had been drifting from job to job in various industries, to give him a position out of pity. I gave up on expecting concrete instructions from Evan. But he held a grudge against me for embarrassing him in that meeting and resented me persistently afterward. I heard you're in your 40s, Mark. In other companies, you'd be considered a mid-level employee. Why are you still a regular employee here? I enjoy working on the production floor and wish to continue here until the end. No need for such excuses. In other words, you're incompetent. We don't need incompetent employees here, but do your best to work hard. Whenever we crossed paths, he would make sarcastic remarks and complain. Gradually, his sarcasm wasn't just directed at me but also at Emily, my right-hand woman. She is a younger woman in her 30s with exceptional skills and a great sense for the work. That's why I always included her in my product development, but Evan mocked her for it. This company has generous benefits. Mark even has a babysitter assigned to him. Seeing him compare me and Emily while laughing, I almost retorted. I could ignore insults directed at me, but involving other employees was different. However, it was Emily herself who held me back. I know how capable you are. No matter what anyone says, we just need to prove ourselves through our work. Her smile, which always cheered up everyone around, also helped ease my tension. This is how we managed to continue our daily work despite the troublesome presence of Evan. However, over time, his behavior became even more unbearable. It became a norm for him to leave work on time while pushing his tasks onto his subordinates. Although we employees covered his work, he never showed any gratitude or appreciation. Moreover, when employees applied for paid leave, he would reject it with unreasonable excuses like being too busy or coinciding with his own leave. Realizing that this was unsustainable, we decided to directly complain to Mr. Carson about him. We believed that only he, being a relative, could change Evan's attitude. But the result was a complete failure. Instead of reprimanding Evan, I was the one who got scolded. You've been with this company for 20 years, haven't you? It's your role to support Evan, yet you complain without making any effort. From now on, devote yourself more to assisting him. Hearing this directly from the CEO made me utterly disillusioned with the company. Since then, Evan has been subjecting me to various petty harassments. I've been working on developing a machine that assembles parts for about 5 years. I named it Fabs, combining fabrication and fabulous, to represent the joy of creation. Fabs was designed to handle large and heavy parts accurately, automating a wide range of assembly tasks. Once completed, it would replace manual insertion processes, significantly reducing work time and stabilizing quality. For the past year, we focused on finalizing the product based on the prototype, but one day, the prototype was found destroyed. When I arrived at work that day, I was shocked to see the prototype forcibly toppled and in pieces. The prototype was quite large and was securely fixed to prevent it from being easily knocked over. But now, it appeared as if it had taken a severe hit, with one side severely dented. As I stood there in shock, Evan approached, pretending to be passing by, and sneered at me. "Oh, is that the toy you were making, Mark?" "Sorry, I bumped into it, and it fell over." "But isn't it good that we found out its weakness before it was commercialized?" "You should be thanking me." Lying through his teeth, he walked away laughing loudly. There's no way it would fall just from a bump. It was designed to withstand repeated shaking. Even though I knew it was his doing, without any proof of his deliberate act, I couldn't report it anywhere. Swallowing my frustration, I began repairing the prototype. Fortunately, most of the internal circuitry was intact, and within a few days, the prototype was restored. Since then, I made sure to lock the room where the prototype was kept whenever I left. Previously, the development room was always open so that anyone in the company could freely observe it. The low barriers for exchanging opinions across positions and departments were a strong point of this company, but from that day, such enjoyment became a thing of the past. Besides this incident, Evan continued to harass me by shredding documents I created and piling an excessive amount of paperwork solely on me. Additionally, he would answer calls intended for me and delete data I was responsible for without permission, taking his harassment to new levels. Despite this, I stayed at the company. This was because I had a strong resolve not to leave until Fabs was officially launched. I believed that once Fabs was released, it could bring about a small revolution in the manufacturing industry, which was suffering from a labor shortage. Holding on to this belief, I endured Evan's daily provocations and immersed myself in product development. In the midst of these trying days, a turning point finally arrived. One day, an envelope was delivered to my desk. It was an invitation to the world's largest technology and manufacturing exhibition. This exhibition was a platform to showcase the latest manufacturing and implementation technologies in electronics, attracting related industries from both domestic and international companies, such as electronics, semiconductors, and automotive parts manufacturers. I had applied to present Fabs, which I had been developing for 5 years, at this event. Now everyone will see how amazing Fabs is. I prepared day and night for the exhibition, fine-tuning Fabs and getting ready for the presentation. On the day of the exhibition, the venue was filled with industry experts and media representatives. Finally, it was time to present Fabs. As the presentation time approached, I felt a thrilling excitement like never before. But just 5 minutes before the start, I was suddenly called out by the event organizers. "Mark, we're sorry, but Evan will be presenting instead of you." "What? Evan?" I was bewildered, but while I was trying to process this, Evan walked past me with my presentation materials and took the stage. He then began presenting the content I was supposed to present, with a self-satisfied look on his face. "What is going on? I prepared everything. The demo files for Fabs, the PR videos, everything was made by me." Next to me, Emily was also trembling at the sight before us. "This is terrible. I can't believe it. He has stolen all of your work, Mark. Fabs is my creation. I built it from scratch and finally brought it to completion." After the presentation, Evan, completely satisfied, approached us as we stood there in shock. "Evan, what is the meaning of this? What's the problem?" "It's obvious. It's better for a department head like me to explain than a regular employee like you. Don't you understand that it increases the chances of successful deals?" he retorted, showing no remorse whatsoever. Unable to hold back, I finally let go of my usual resignation and protested. "But Fabs is my invention. You don't even understand the content of the materials you just read, do you? The employee who understands the product should be the one presenting. You just don't get it, do you? Besides, I got permission from Mr. Carson to present this machine." "Are you going to go against his decision?" Seeing the smug look on his face, I realized that arguing further was pointless. He must have been waiting for an opportunity to embarrass me for a long time. When I reacted to him destroying the prototype, he probably figured out that Fabs was the most important thing to me. He had undoubtedly arranged everything in advance with Mr. Carson to take Fabs away from me. But being told it was the CEO's decision, there was nothing more a regular employee like me could do. As I stood there swallowing my frustration, Evan patted me on the shoulder and walked away with a gleeful look. "Well, since there's nothing more to discuss, I'll take my leave." I have to handle the inquiries and orders for that machine. As expected, Fabs was welcomed with open arms by the industry. Evan had stolen my product and, as a result, gained significant recognition and fame in the industry. Seeing Evan and Mr. Carson reveling in their success, I finally made up my mind. The most shocking news came the day after the exhibition, today. Remembering the humiliating events of the previous day, I went to work as usual. However, my desk was completely empty. All the research I had accumulated over the years and the meticulously gathered documents were gone. What is going on here? I don't know. I have no idea. When I came in this morning, it was already like this. I asked Emily and my other colleagues, but everyone just shook their heads, clueless. After searching the department, we found that everything from my desk had been stuffed into garbage bags and left in a storage room. Who would do something like this? Emily muttered in shock, and everyone thought of the same person. At that moment, "Mark, what are you doing over there?" "Evan." Grinning smugly, Evan appeared, clearly in high spirits. He glanced at me holding the garbage bags and snorted derisively. "Rummaging through trash early in the morning? You've really hit rock bottom, haven't you? My belongings were thrown away." "Do you know anything about it, Evan?" "Oh, that? It was all unnecessary, so I took care of it last night." "You should be thanking me." "What?" He casually admitted it was his doing, leaving me speechless. As I struggled to find a response, he smiled and dropped a bombshell. "Congratulations, Mark. You've been selected for workforce reduction. We're hiring a top-tier new graduate starting tomorrow, so you're fired." I was stunned by the sudden announcement. He continued, enjoying himself. "The new hire is Mr. Carson's son. He's a young, college-educated employee, totally different from an eternal regular employee like you. The machine you made, Fabs or whatever, is finished, right? That means you're no longer needed by the company. The new hire will use your desk starting tomorrow, so clear it out and leave today. In other words, you're fired. I've worked diligently for 20 years. And now you're telling me to leave by the end of today?" His grin widened even more at my response. "That's what I've been saying. A regular employee can't even understand when they're being fired. Listen, Mark, you're fired. It's unfortunate. But that's reality. You should regret the foolishness of opposing me." "That's good." "What?" He was taken aback and stopped talking. "What did you just say?" "I said that's good." "Evan, can't you understand my response? This company may be what it is now, but I've been here for 20 years. I was hesitant to submit my resignation, but since you fired me for the company's convenience, it's a different story. Now I can leave this company proudly." Hearing my words, Evan stood there, dumbfounded for a moment. But soon he shook his head, regaining his composure, and that nasty, smug grin returned to his face. "Is this the howl of a loser? No matter how much you pretend to be tough, you're still fired. Pack your things and leave." "I will. And by the way, I'll be taking all the unpaid vacation days I've accrued. For a lowly employee, you sure know how to use your head. Take as many days off as you want." With that, he laughed loudly and walked away. I gathered my necessary belongings and left the company. After 20 years of commuting every day, rain or shine, it ended rather abruptly. Thinking about this, I slept in late the next day, forgetting all my past fatigue. But when I woke up and saw my phone screen by my pillow, I blinked in surprise. What is with all these missed calls? There were dozens of missed calls from the workplace I had just left. They must have been calling non-stop since the start of the workday. As I sighed at the long list of missed calls, another call came in. I was tempted to ignore it, but the constant ringing was draining the battery, and it was annoying. I realized that if the calls continued like this, I wouldn't be able to use my phone properly. So, reluctantly, I decided to answer. "Hello, this is Mark. Finally. How long were you going to keep me waiting? The workplace is in chaos. Get here immediately." The person yelling was, of course, Evan. Without waiting for my response, he started babbling about the situation. According to him, when he arrived at work this morning, there were no employees present. When no one showed up at the start of the workday, he began calling each employee, only to find out that everyone had resigned. Shocked, he visited the CEO's office, but found only a pale-faced Mr. Carson, with his secretary nowhere to be found. After you left yesterday, all the employees came to submit their resignations. They all said they would leave in a month and use their remaining vacation days during that month. I thought it was a joke and ignored it. But no one showed up today. I only fired Mark. Why did the other employees resign too? Evan was at a loss, and Mr. Carson had no answers either. Gradually, Evan's face turned red with panic. This means there's no one to do the handover. The company is in serious trouble. I told them the same thing, but they insisted it was according to the rules and no one would come back. Did they really have that many vacation days left? And taking a month's worth of vacation is incredibly unprofessional. His rant continued, and then he started berating me over the phone. You mentioned taking your vacation days yesterday, right? This company's employees have no sense. Taking vacation days when you're fired. And for a whole month, no less. This is fraud. There's nothing unusual about it. I was completely exasperated and explained the vacation policy to him. In this company, employees earn 20 days of paid leave each year. Additionally, for this particular year, they can carry over unused days to the next year. Thus, employees could accumulate up to 40 days of paid leave if they choose to. Ever since you came, you've been denying our vacation requests for various reasons. So everyone carried over their unused vacation days. This is just karma for what you've done to us. No way. His weak voice was clear even over the phone. But then he snapped back to reality and raised his voice again. All right, I'll give up on the other employees. But you must convince Emily, who worked with you, to stay. What? Why just her? She knows all the ins and outs of your complicated work. After firing you, I planned to have her take over your tasks. But now she's left too. My plan is ruined. That's unfortunate. I suppressed the urge to laugh. Actually, after leaving the company yesterday, I met up with Emily. I submitted my resignation to Mr. Carson as well. She said, smiling brightly as she followed me out. Are you sure about this? Absolutely. A company that makes such poor decisions isn't worth staying at. When I told him I was resigning, he mocked me, saying they wouldn't miss 1 or 2 employees like me. She started laughing heartily. Mr. Carson and Evan are going to be in for a shock tomorrow. It's not just 1 or 2 employees, the entire staff is quitting. I wish I could see Evan's face when he finds out. Yes, this mass resignation was our plan all along. Everyone had been fed up with Evan's antics and Mr. Carson's failure to stop him. We had been planning to leave the company, and the incident with Evan hijacking my presentation at the exhibition was the final straw. After that, Emily and I joined our other resigned colleagues and celebrated with some delicious drinks. As I recalled the events of yesterday, I heard Evan's weak voice on the phone. If it comes to this, even you will do. Come to the office immediately. The phones have been ringing non-stop with inquiries, and we can't keep up. I was fired by you, Evan. I can't come to your company. I clearly refused and ended the call. As I hung up, I could still hear his pleading voice, but I had no more ties to that company. Evan continued to call me intermittently. However, I never answered, and the calls gradually decreased, eventually stopping completely after a week. He must have been too busy dealing with the company to keep calling me. I enjoyed my newfound peaceful life for a while. Later, I heard that the company went through a tough time. Even when they received inquiries, only Evan and Mr. Carson were there to handle them, which led to many misunderstandings. Eventually, a defect was found in the fabs presented at the exhibition, and the company received numerous complaints. Without me, who had developed it, Evan was at a loss. He couldn't answer questions about repair schedules or future prospects, angering the clients. Meanwhile, I continued to walk my usual commute route. As I passed my former company, Evan spotted me and rushed over, sweating profusely. You're finally here. I knew you would come, Mark. Now, fix that fabs machine. The clients are furious. Half crying, he clung to me, but I shook off his hand nonchalantly. You must be mistaken. I was fired from Carson Manufacturing. Then why are you here? I'm on my way to my new company. From now on, I'll be working at Davis Engineering, my new startup. Evan was stunned, his eyes wide, and he turned pale, collapsing to the ground. He tried to say something, but I ignored him and headed to my new office across from Carson Manufacturing. I had always wanted to have my own company. A place where I could freely create machines, a dream come true. And with like-minded colleagues, I wanted to create products that could compete globally. As I shared my vision, my co-workers supported my plan. What started as a dream became more serious as Evan worsened the work environment. We gradually prepared for the startup, and I had intended to stay at Carson Manufacturing until the launch of Fabs out of loyalty. But the betrayal at the exhibition by Evan and Mr. Carson sealed my decision to leave. In my new office, I looked out the shiny windows inside. The data Evan presented at the exhibition included bugs from before the revisions. I had the correct data and fixed parts ready for the real presentation. If he had apologized, I might have given him the revised data, but that's impossible now. I turned to see Emily standing there with a cup of coffee. Behind me, my former colleagues were smiling warmly. Everyone who had submitted their resignations had joined my new company. I looked around at the familiar faces. All reliable friends. Let's work together and give it our all. I look forward to working with you. Encouraged by my words, my colleagues responded with bright, beaming smiles. After that, we worked together to develop the improved version of Fabs. We addressed the previous issues and launched the final product online. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and seeing this, Evan reportedly collapsed to the floor in despair, saying, "This is the end for our company." Just as he predicted, the old company stopped receiving new orders. Everyone preferred the improved version from my new company. Nobody wanted to buy the problematic old product. Evan only received repair requests, but he couldn't handle them and was soon swamped with refund demands. Shortly after, the company went bankrupt. The elite newcomer, Mr. Carson's son, had long since fled and was working in an unrelated company. Meanwhile, Mr. Carson and Evan ended up with massive debts and eventually filed for bankruptcy. After that, they tried to find new jobs, but Evan, having never worked properly, was not hired anywhere for long. The other day, Emily confided in me with a serious expression. Actually, the other day, I saw a soup kitchen in a park in the neighboring city for people in need. Among them, I think I saw someone who looked a lot like Mr. Carson and Evan. If it really was them, their fate is tragic. But it's certain that they are reaping the consequences of their actions. Since then, my company has been steadily growing. We've been continuously improving, incorporating customer feedback to make the machine more versatile with interchangeable attachments. I intend to keep cherishing the feelings of my employees and our gratitude towards our customers. And my relationship with Emily has also blossomed. I'll always stay by your side. I want to watch the company grow alongside you. It's been a year since she confessed her feelings, and we started dating. Next month, we're getting married. I want to continue building a vibrant workplace with Emily, who understands me better than anyone else. Hand in hand with her, I step into a new future. With all my might, I will continue working tirelessly today and every day. Sarah, what's going on? There's no way we can pass the internal review with such poorly prepared materials. Surely you understand that, right? From the other side of the partition, I heard my classmate Sarah being scolded by our supervisor, Chris. Sarah clenched her fists in frustration, saying, "I am truly sorry." Peeking through the gap in the partition, I felt something was off about the contents displayed on the laptop screen pointed at by our manager. David. Today, I would fulfill that promise from long ago and become Sarah's hero. I pushed myself and said, "Wait a minute, Chris." Stepping into the corner, I did everything I could to restore Sarah's honor. My name is Jim. People say everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, but I have recently realized that I am someone who is particularly prone to the latter. This is because, at my current job at Green Valley Foods, I am constantly assigned to tasks that do not suit me, causing me intense stress every day. Specifically, my duties include preparing meeting materials from printed documents, cleaning the conference rooms, and serving coffee, in other words, all the menial tasks. I have always been clumsy, and even tasks that others find simple often took me a long time to finish or I failed to do them properly. The reason I ended up at Green Valley Foods was because my previous workplace went bankrupt. At that company, I was given tasks that suited me perfectly, making work much more comfortable. However, after the owner of my previous company passed away due to illness, a succession dispute broke out. As a result, the company's performance deteriorated, and all the employees lost their jobs. At 31 years old and unemployed, I struggled with my poor communication skills. I had been smoothly introduced to my previous job by my college professor. However, presenting my strengths and enthusiasm for work to strangers was extremely difficult for me. After more than 6 months of job hunting without receiving a single offer, Green Valley Foods finally took me in. The reason they hired me despite my poor communication skills was because Green Valley Foods placed a high value on academic background. Impressive credentials. You're hired on the spot. When I attended the interview, I was taken aback by the interviewer's immediate offer. I graduated from one of the top 3 universities in the country. And Green Valley Foods was eager to have someone with my background join their ranks. Thank you. I'll do my best, so please take care of me. Having been overwhelmed by my own helplessness for the past 6 months, I was deeply grateful to Green Valley Foods for accepting me with just a brief self-introduction. However, once I started working, I was assigned only with menial tasks. The reason was that during my training period, my innate clumsiness had become apparent. Even simple tasks like stapling documents and setting up conference rooms properly were beyond my capabilities, leading the company to quickly give up on me. With such poor performance on basic tasks, there's no way we can assign you anything more important. Chris, who had watched my failures with a tone of exasperation, had not given me anything but menial tasks since. But at that time, I was desperate to avoid being fired, so I complied with Chris's orders and performed the menial tasks. As a result, nearly a year after joining, I am now labeled as the highly educated but incompetent person who can't even handle menial tasks. In reality, it is rare for me to perform these tasks without any mistakes, so I cannot argue against this label. I once overheard other employees questioning Chris why I was still employed. The president of Green Valley Foods said that having someone from such a prestigious university on staff could attract more talented individuals. So, just bear with him. Apparently, they hired me merely to boost the company's reputation as a workplace chosen by a prestigious university graduate. Although I am not openly criticized, I feel uncomfortable being treated like an outsider because of the company's emphasis on education. Even so, afraid of losing my job, I worked diligently, and one morning during the daily meeting, I had a fateful reunion. This is Sarah, who will be working with us starting today. She was scouted from Pioneer Foods, which we have dealings with. We expect her to be an immediate asset. The woman introduced by Chris was a stunning beauty with short hair, impeccably dressed in a business suit. Pioneer Foods, a subcontractor of Green Valley Foods, is a company that produces a wide range of processed foods, including frozen foods. Sarah, who had handled a wide range of tasks from sales to product development at Pioneer Foods, had been headhunted to our company. I couldn't hide my surprise when I saw her. We attended the same middle and high school, and were classmates for all 3 years of high school. After going our separate ways for university, I hadn't seen her since. I never imagined I would meet Sarah again in a place like this. After the meeting, I approached Sarah as she made her way to her desk. Hi, long time no see. Do you remember me? I'm Jim. We went to the same middle and high school. I stammered. My colleagues were surprised that I, who had become increasingly withdrawn due to being treated like an outsider, had initiated a conversation with the newcomer. However, Sarah merely glanced at me with her sharp eyes and said, "Jim." "Sorry, I don't quite remember," before waving lightly and heading to her desk. Feeling dejected, I started my work with a renewed sense of insignificance and a heavy heart. Being forgotten by Sarah left me so devastated that I couldn't focus on my work at all. Even the document preparation, which should have been finished long ago, wasn't completed. Left alone in the office, I sat at my desk in the corner, feeling utterly hopeless about my clumsiness. This page goes. Wait, where did the stapler go? Oh, the pages are out of order. Though I could easily organize information in my head, the moment I had to make paper documents, my desk became a mess. And my work came to a standstill. Adding to this was my innate clumsiness, making it impossible to keep track of what I was doing. Falling into a vicious cycle, I felt like giving up, but then I heard an unexpected voice. Still struggling with this kind of work, I see. Sarah walked straight to my desk, tidied it up, and explained the order in which I should complete my tasks. Some people are particular about how you staple documents, so try to align the angles properly. But if that's too difficult, just staple them in this order. Following Sarah's instructions, my work began to flow smoothly, like a highway cleared of traffic. Thanks to her help, I finished my assigned work in just about 30 minutes. Thank you. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have finished this quickly. When I thanked her, Sarah smiled and shook her head. It's nothing. If this is all it takes, I'll help you again. Well, I'm off now. As she turned to leave, I hurriedly called out. Sarah. This morning, you said you didn't remember me, right? She turned to face me, a hand on her mouth, and said, I didn't want to keep the senior employees waiting. I may not have your level of memory, but I'm confident in mine. I wouldn't forget a classmate that easily. Her graceful gesture encouraged me to muster the courage to make a suggestion. Would you like to have dinner tonight? I'd like to thank you by treating you. It was rare for me to invite someone out, given my poor communication skills. The fact that she was a familiar face from school and my gratitude for her help pushed me to ask. She thought for a moment and then asked, What's your monthly salary? Confused, I answered honestly. Just as I thought, I'm earning more than you. It wouldn't be right for you to treat someone who earns more. Let's do this another time, she said, waving lightly as she left the office. The next day, she fully immersed herself in her work, showcasing her abilities. Using her experience from Pioneer Foods, where she handled everything from sales to product development, she pitched a new product idea within the company. Within 6 months, her proposed replacement food series entered the trial phase. Even though she was a mid-career hire, the fact that she achieved this much within a year made Chris, who had scouted her, proud. She's impressive. Just as I expected. Everyone should learn from her, he praised her during the morning meeting. Seeing her excel made me genuinely happy. Though she graduated from a mid-tier public university, she was much more dedicated and efficient than the prestigious university graduates, including myself. At the same time, I couldn't help but feel a sense of loneliness. For the first month after she joined, she would occasionally stay late to help me with my work, but recently, she seemed beyond my reach. And we rarely talked. Looking for an opportunity, I asked, Is there anything I can help with? Handling menial tasks is my job, so please let me know. She always would glance at me and say, There's nothing I need help with right now. I'll let you know if I need anything. Thanks for asking. Before returning to her work, the girl who once felt so close during our school days had grown into a competent professional, far beyond my reach. Realizing this, I stopped approaching her altogether. About a week after her product entered the trial phase, I was working late, sorting documents in the partitioned space in the office, when I overheard my colleague Jessica's voice. She seemed to be complaining to a male coworker. Don't you think Sarah is suspicious? Everything is going too well for her. Jessica, who was 2 years older than me, had worked here since graduating from college. While she was somewhat successful, she seemed jealous of Sarah's achievements, and her attitude towards Sarah was often harsh. Though she spoke coldly to female colleagues, she adopted a more endearing tone when speaking to male colleagues. With her childlike appearance, Jessica often managed to get male co-workers to help her. I heard a rumor that Sarah is flirting with Chris and David. It's just a rumor, but there is no smoke without fire, right? Hearing Jessica's words, I felt my blood boil. I quickly stood up and moved to the other side of the partition, shouting, Sarah would never do something like that. You don't know anything about her, so stop making baseless comments. My voice echoed through the office. Fortunately, only Jessica, the male coworker listening to her, and I were in the office, but the two of them stared at me wide-eyed, shocked by my sudden appearance. It seemed they hadn't realized I was on the other side of the partition. Who do you think you are, acting so high and mighty just because you got hired for your credentials? Jessica, who had always looked down on me, turned bright red with anger at my unexpected outburst. Sure, I might be someone who can't even handle menial tasks properly, but that doesn't matter right now. Determined to protect Sarah's honor, I was about to say more when the sound of heels clicking echoed through the office. And Sarah herself walked in. Jessica, the male coworker, and I stared at her in surprise as Sarah fixed her sharp gaze on me and said, "I know you're trying to defend me. But you need to be mindful of your volume. You could be disturbing others." While I stood there, dejected, Sarah turned her attention to Jessica and said, "For him to get this angry, you must have said something pretty awful. Mostly that I'm trading sexual favors or something like that? Don't worry, I don't have to do that, I can still get results." With that, she saw through Jessica's remarks and left the office. Her composed demeanor seemed to infuriate Jessica even more, and from that point on, Jessica began to openly harass her. "Sarah, make some coffee. This is a job for the newcomer. Don't rely on Jim, I'm asking you to do it." Usually, tasks like making coffee would be done by whoever was free. Which was mostly my job were now being unfairly assigned to Sarah under the guise of her being the newcomer. However, Sarah remained disturbed and said, "Understood. Does anyone have a preferred temperature?" Stopping her work, she complied with Jessica's unreasonable demands. With her work frequently interrupted, Sarah, like me, ended up staying late. She needed to analyze the data from the new product trial phase and devise improvements. When I asked if there was anything I could help with, she massaged her temples and looked up at the ceiling. "I'd like to say I'm fine, but I'm really tired of staring at the screen. Could you read the data out loud for me? Hearing it might spark some ideas." For the first time since she joined the company, I heard her voice sounding vulnerable. Following her request, I read out the data on the texture, flavor, and size of the new product. The data was extensive, and it took nearly an hour to read it all. "It's done, Sarah." "Wait, what?" When I looked up from the screen, she was leaning back in her chair, her eyes covered with her hand, gently snoring. Unsure of what to do, I hesitated until she suddenly jerked awake. "Sorry, I guess I couldn't help it. Listening to numbers makes me sleepy. Just like in school," she said with an embarrassed smile. Her charming gesture, a stark contrast to her usual cool demeanor, made my heart skip a beat. To hide my embarrassment, I turned to her and said, "Aren't you exhausted? You've been working nonstop, and Jessica's harassment isn't stopping. Why not talk to Chris about it?" After a moment of contemplation, she shook her head slightly. "That won't solve anything. I need to succeed despite the interference to earn her respect. Besides," she looked directly into my eyes. Swallowing hard, I watched as she slowly smiled and said, "Talking to you like this helps me feel better. Just like in high school." I remembered the summer of our senior year when she had to organize our class's event for the school festival as the class president. Our classmates, mostly preoccupied with college entrance exams, was uncooperative, leaving Sarah to do most of the work alone. I stayed late at school for some reason and ended up listening to her struggles. "Just like now. The school festival, right?" "I remember," I replied. Nodding, she smiled warmly. "Just as I thought. Well, I feel refreshed, so let's get back to work. You have tasks to finish too, right? Let's get them done quickly." Despite Jessica's ongoing harassment, she worked tirelessly for a week. During that time, I stayed late to help her, although I wasn't sure I was doing enough. But every time, she would leave with a bright smile, saying, "Thank you, you really helped me a lot." Then, one day, as the trial modifications were about to enter the next stage, Chris called Sarah over. She was summoned to the partitioned area where I had once prepared documents. This spot, occupying a corner of the office, was often used by Chris for detailed work. "Sarah, what is going on? If I submit such a poorly done report to David, I'll be the one getting chewed out." From the voice coming from the other side of the partition, it seemed like Chris was scolding Sarah. "With such sloppy data, it will be difficult to improve. At this rate, we'll be overtaken by other candidates. How do you plan to take responsibility?" His voice was filled with anger, while Sarah could only repeatedly apologize in a voice as quiet as a mosquito's, "I'm sorry." At that moment, a conversation from my school days with Sarah came to mind. If I can't help her now, when will I ever become a hero? Clenching my fists in determination, I stepped to the other side of the partition, calling out loudly, "Chris, she didn't make any mistakes." They looked at me with wide eyes. "Jim, do you know what you're doing? If you realize you're only here out of pity, you'd better leave right now." Chris tried to dismiss me with a tone of exasperation, but I couldn't back down here. Pointing at the laptop in front of Chris, I said, "The data can't be wrong. Because originally, it looked like this." And began to recite the words and figures I remembered from the document. As Chris stared in disbelief, I indicated the laptop with my eyes. "I'll say it again, compare it with the screen. With this data, you'll see it makes sense." After about 10 minutes of comparing the data with the laptop screen, Chris looked at me and said, "If your data is correct, this report should be sufficient." But what on earth happened? Sarah helped me out when I was at a loss for words. He's got a very high IQ, especially in terms of memory and recalling it at will. She answered simply, looking somewhat proud. She continued, "He must have remembered the data while helping me with the report." Honestly, even I didn't remember the data this accurately. So I'm really grateful he was there. "Oh, is that so?" Chris, still in shock, listened as I shared my hypothesis based on my memory. That laptop isn't connected to the network, so anyone who tampered with it had to be here in the office. If we check the time cards from when Sarah and I left the office yesterday, we should be able to identify who altered the data. Our company has surveillance cameras, so they could serve as evidence. When I looked at Sarah, she nodded slightly. She must have a sense of who the culprit might be as well. At that moment, someone came rushing over from the other side of the partition. That person came at us with incredible speed, saying, "I'm sorry. I tampered with the data out of jealousy over Sarah's success. After I left yesterday, I regretted it, but I couldn't bring myself to confess." She bowed deeply to both Chris and Sarah, offering words of apology. My loud voice must have reached Jessica on the other side of the partition. Realizing the danger, Jessica tried to minimize the damage by apologizing first. But this is a very serious issue. Even Chris, who was relatively lenient with Jessica, seemed troubled by this situation. Pulling down a colleague in the same department could very well result in being fired. However, an unexpected person resolved the situation. "Chris, I don't want her to face harsh punishment. Since joining the company, I haven't been able to build close relationships with my colleagues because I've been so focused on work, so I also share some blame." She urged Jessica to lift her head and said, "Please, can we let this incident slide?" Sarah, the one who had been wronged, bowed her head to Chris. With her plea, Chris had no choice but to relent. "All right, everyone, let's do that." Accepting Sarah's proposal, he called out to the employees on the other side of the partition. That night, I found myself at a stylish bar with Sarah, who had invited me. The bar had a quiet atmosphere, and thanks to our seat at a corner table in the hall, we could enjoy our conversation undisturbed. In such a setting, Sarah was the first to speak. "Thank you, you were amazing. It was like the school festival all over again." Her words of praise were almost too much for me. "Yeah, I remember. You were just summarizing the class's ideas, but some guys picked a fight with you. Back then, the uncooperative boys didn't like her lead and complained, 'We can't accept a plan that the chairperson decided on her own.' Not wanting to see her vilified, I recited everyone's comments from the homeroom when the plan was decided, word for word. Thanks to you, I was cleared of deciding it on my own. But instead, you ended up being seen as creepy by the class. I really appreciated it at that time." Her repeated words of thanks made my heart swell. "It's nothing. I just wanted to help." As I stammered, she shook her head firmly. Looking me straight in the eyes, she said, "I'm so sly. I always think about how to handle things smoothly, keeping an eye on others' reactions. That's why I pretended not to know you on my first day at the company. I'm sorry, you must be disappointed." Her voice shook as she apologized. This is the second time I've seen her looking so frail. Back in our school days, she always seemed so dependable and dignified, but I never knew she had this side to her. Seeing this new side of her, I clenched my fists to muster my courage and said as firmly as I could, "I'm not disappointed. I want to keep my promise. I've always wanted to be Sarah's hero." She turned away, pressing her eyes. You remember that promise? Your memory is amazing. That day when we stayed late preparing for the school festival, she had said half-jokingly, I believe in heroes. I don't tell my friends this because they'd laugh at me, but what do you think, Jim? I admired her even, back then, for her boldness and self-assuredness. Summoning the courage from within, I replied, I think they exist. And if you ever stop believing in heroes, I'll become your hero. Thinking back, it was an embarrassingly bold statement. She had gone silent for a moment but then clapped her hands and laughed. Jim is a hero, huh? That's nice. I'll be waiting for you to save me like a hero would. She stuck out her tongue playfully. Recalling that moment, she looked down, embarrassed. Back then, I was so condescending. I'm sorry, I couldn't be honest because I was embarrassed. Because, I've always admired you, Jim. Not comprehending her words, I froze, speechless. Seeing me, she scratched her head sheepishly and said, You were always so smart but never arrogant. You were always modest. And whenever someone struggled in class, you'd help them out. I admired that about you. She fidgeted with her hands and smiled warmly. I got so excited when you said you'd become a hero for me. Thank you for keeping your promise. Hearing her true feelings made my eyes well up. I have to step up now if I want to be a hero. Encouraging myself, I turned to her and said, I want to always be your hero. Will you go out with me? Sarah said, Of course. Let's go out together. I'm lucky to be with a hero. Responding with a smile so broad it created laugh lines. Later, her proposed new product successfully completed its trial phase and was launched to the market. Thanks to her advocacy about my help, I transitioned from menial tasks to a data management role that utilized my memory skills. A year later, I took her to the restaurant where I had confessed. I have earned more. I can't compete with you yet, but let me treat you tonight. I said. I proposed paying for our date, which had always been split evenly. I'm sorry, it was pretentious of me. That was just pride. I used to think that being treated by a man meant being looked down on. Recalling her past self, she looked quite endearing compared to her usual dignified demeanor. Determined to take our relationship to the next level, I presented her a ring box. I want to be with you. I'll be the hero who protects you and our future family. She looked back and forth between me and the ring box, taking deep breaths. Pointing at the box, she said, Put it on me. Being given a ring by my hero, I'm truly lucky, extending her slender finger. We reunited in an unexpected way, turned our school day dreams into reality and embarked on a new path together as a family. Smells like poverty. Let me help you get rid of that smell. At a middle school reunion, I ran into my ex-girlfriend who used to look down on me for being poor. She poured wine on me. Maybe you smell a bit more luxurious now, thanks to the wine. Even though I'm no longer the same person as I was before, her attitude of constantly assuming I'm poor and laughing at me was exhausting. A woman who handed me a handkerchief glared at my ex and said, He's not poor, He makes $2 million a year. What are you doing? After that, my ex-girlfriend faced a karmic end. I might consider dating you, James. There was no way I wouldn't be thrilled when Ashley, the most popular girl not just in our class but in the whole school, said that to me. My name is James. I'm just an ordinary boy attending a regular public middle school. If there's anything unusual about me, it's that my parents divorced when I was in elementary school. Now, I live with my mom in a single-parent household, and we don't have much money. My mom works from morning until night. I try to ease her burden by doing what I can myself. I can handle basic housework, and my mom always smiles and says, it helps a lot, when she sees me doing it. In my class, there's Ashley. She's known for being cute and beautiful, and even though she's still a middle schooler, she works as a magazine model. She's popular throughout the school, and many students admire her. Of course, I was one of them. That day, during our monthly seat change, I happened to end up sitting next to Ashley. I was so nervous, to say the least. So, you're James, right? Nice to meet you. Yeah. I couldn't come up with a better response, so I felt annoyed at myself. but Ashley didn't seem to mind at all. Ashley, who works as a model, sometimes missed classes or arrived late. And when that happened, she often spoke to me because I sit next to her. I would generously share my notes and let her look at my textbooks, and because of that, we started talking more often. Talking to Ashley was really fun and exciting. It goes without saying that I was increasingly drawn to her. One day, it was one of those rare lunchbox days. Normally, my middle school provides lunch, but occasionally, we have to bring our own lunchbox. That day, I woke up early, made my own lunchbox, and was eating it at lunch when Ashley came into the classroom saying, "Hey, everyone." "Hey, Ashley. Did you have a shoot today?" "Yeah, I'm so tired," she said, greeting the girls in the class and sitting next to me. "Wait, where's my school lunch?" she said, looking around. "Ashley, it's lunchbox day, today." "Oh no, I totally forgot. I came here for the school lunch." "You came just for the school lunch?" I laughed as I continued eating my lunch. "Wait, James, your lunch looks delicious." "Really?" "It's just a normal lunch." "Did you make it yourself?" "Yeah." "No way. That's amazing." "Well, it's not that big deal." Ashley said, "Can I have a piece of your omelet?" and without waiting for my permission, she picked it up with her fingers and popped it into her mouth. "Wow, this is so good." "James, you have a talent for cooking." "Well, thank you." I was really happy inside, but I got embarrassed and looked away. "I can't cook, so I think people who can are awesome," she said. And started eating the fried chicken I made. "This is amazing too," she said with a bright smile I couldn't look away from. "I might consider dating you, James." With those words, Ashley and I started dating. Before I knew it, Ashley and I were dating, and we finally planned our first date. We planned to go on a classic movie date. The reason was that she said there was a movie she wanted to see. Our meeting time was 11 o'clock, but I was so nervous that I arrived at the meeting place by 10:30. After all, it was my first date with Ashley. I must not mess up today. I kept waiting nervously, and she finally arrived at 11:30, saying, "Sorry, I'm late." It took me a while to do my makeup, sorry. Even though she was late, Ashley looked incredibly stylish and unbelievably cute. She was so stunning that I felt guilty being her date. Shall we head to the movie theater?" "Yeah, let's go." I was so nervous that I kept talking to Ashley, but I don't remember any of the conversation. As we were walking together, a group of juvenile delinquents who I thought didn't exist anymore approached us, saying, "Hey there, cutie." They looked like high school students, about 5 of them. "There's a toll to pass through here." "A toll?" "Yeah, it's $100 each to pass. Since there are 2 of you, that'll be $200. $200. Even under normal circumstances, $200 is a lot of money, but for a middle schooler from a single-parent household like me, it's an even bigger deal. It feels like $20,000 to me. I don't have that much. Then leave all the money you have. I'm scared." Ashley cried out. I was really scared too, but I was the only one who could protect her. However, surrounded by 5 guys much bigger than me, and not being particularly athletic, there was no way I could win. I tried to put up my hands in a defensive pose, but my legs froze, and I couldn't move. In the end, I got beaten up by the group. One of them took my wallet from my bag and looked inside. "What? This guy only has $30 in his wallet. $30 for a date? Ashley, this guy is super poor. No way, did he plan to split the movie cost? Unbelievable. That $30 is my precious allowance from my mom." I tried to reach for it, but couldn't. They took the $30 and threw my wallet back at me. And finally, I heard Ashley say, "So lame," as she walked away with the group of delinquents. I was taken to the hospital by an ambulance that a passerby called, and it turned out I had a broken leg. I ended up with a cast and crutches. When I returned to school after the break, I was laughed at. "Hey James. I heard how you got that injury. That's so lame." That was Robert, the leader of our class. Next to Robert was Ashley. "James, you're seriously too lame. Plus, being poor is the worst. I wish you'd never show up in front of me again." Dating you even for a moment is a black mark on my life, Ashley said. Try being surrounded by that many guys, it's terrifying. I tried to retort so, but Robert kicked my crutch and I fell. Looking up in surprise, I met Robert's glare. Got a problem? Loser, he sneered. From that day on, Robert and Ashley started bullying me. They hid my textbooks and school shoes, wrote poor and loser on my desk with permanent markers, and even dunked my school bag in water. In group activities during gym class, I was left out most of the time. No one could stand up to Robert and Ashley, and I couldn't tell my busy mom about any of it. When I hinted to our homeroom teacher, Mr. Smith, about the bullying, he just said, "You're probably imagining it." It was a tough and lonely time, but my childhood friend, Joshua, supported me. Whenever we had group work, he'd say, "James, let's do it together." Our class president, Melissa, also stood by me. She'd always scold Robert and his gang, saying, "Aren't you ashamed of yourselves?" and treated me like a normal person. But despite their support, the relentless bullying made me stop going to school regularly. Before long, I couldn't go to school anymore and started spending my days at home. Joshua and Melissa took turns checking in on me every day, but I just couldn't bring myself to go back to school. After a while, my mom found out that I hadn't been going to school. She gently asked, "What happened?" and I finally told her everything. And then, I told her that I wanted to go to a high school out of state. Of course, the reason was that I wanted to get away from Robert and Ashley, who had bullied me so much. I didn't care if people said I was running away. I straightforwardly told my mom that I wanted to start over in a new place. I had already set my mind to go to a boarding school, and when I told her I wanted to go there, she said, "I'll go with you." So, I applied to a high school far away from here and got accepted. I didn't attend the graduation ceremony at the middle school, but Joshua and Melissa contacted me to say, "Let's keep in touch." And then my mom and I moved away. A few years later, I was living in the town we moved to, without returning to my hometown. One day, I got a message from Joshua saying, "There's going to be a middle school reunion. Are you coming, James?" Just reading that message brought back all those memories, and I had no intention of going, so I simply replied, "I'm not going." Then, Joshua called me for the first time in a while. "Hey, Joshua, long time no see." "Yeah, how have you been?" "I'm doing okay. My health is good." "How about you, Joshua?" "I'm doing well." "So, about the reunion." "Yeah, I'm not going." "I figured you'd say that, but listen. If you showed up now, everyone would be shocked. They only know you from middle school. And they still make fun of you. I want to prove them wrong. You won't be mocked or defeated now, I promise. Please." I don't care if they still make fun of me, but if you put it that way. It's true that the current me wouldn't lose to Robert and the others. After a lot of deliberation, I decided to attend the reunion. On the day of the reunion, my work took longer than expected. The venue wasn't too far from where I was, but the reunion had already started. What should I do? I don't have time to change. I had planned to go home and change into something decent after work before heading to the reunion. But now I was in my tracksuit with no change of clothes. Maybe I should just skip it after all. As I was thinking that, Joshua called. "James, are you almost here?" "No, I'm in a tracksuit. I can't go like this." "A tracksuit?" Joshua laughed. "Just come in your tracksuit. I'm looking forward to seeing you." He hung up, and I decided to go to the reunion in my tracksuit. Who cares? When I arrived, there were a lot of people at the reunion. It seemed almost everyone from our class was there. "James!" Joshua spotted me and ran over. "Sorry for being late, Joshua. You really took your time." "It's been over an hour since it started," he said with his usual bright smile, which made me feel somewhat relieved. But everyone at the venue was giving me cold looks for showing up in a tracksuit. "A tracksuit? Is that James? Why is he in a tracksuit?" I knew I shouldn't have come. I regretted it. Then, someone called out, "Hey, are you really James?" I turned to see a flashy-looking guy with blonde hair and a woman clinging to his side. Looking closer, I realized it was Robert and Ashley. Both of them were somewhat familiar, even though I only knew them from middle school. James, showing up to the reunion in a tracksuit. You're still so lame, it's hilarious. Ashley, who said this, was wearing a slit party dress. A bit over the top for a reunion, don't you think? Hey, loser. You haven't changed at all since middle school. You might look like an adult now, but coming here in a tracksuit makes you still a kid. Robert, who was approaching, wore a blue suit with white stripes. With his blonde hair, he seemed pretty overdressed too. Ashley, Robert, knock it off. I'm the one who told him to come quickly, even if he was in a tracksuit. Joshua defended me, but Robert and the others just snickered. Who actually shows up in a tracksuit? Unbelievable. Wait, James, is a tracksuit your everyday wear? Well, because of my job, I wear it a lot. Don't try to sound cool. You're still poor and can't afford new clothes, right? No, that's not at all. As I was thinking about how they were overly fixated on me, Ashley said, "You smell poor," and then she splashed wine all over me. The wine spread a stain all over my tracksuit. As I wiped my face, she mocked, "Maybe now you smell a bit more luxurious thanks to the wine." James. Are you okay? A woman rushed over to me. She handed me a handkerchief. I took it gratefully and said, "I'm fine." But then she continued, "You need to take off that tracksuit," and the classmates around us started murmuring. Hurry. You'll catch a cold. Melissa, it's fine. Even if you think it's fine, your health is important. I'll get you a shirt, so just take the tracksuit off. At Melissa's insistence, I reluctantly did what I was told. I didn't want to take it off because I wasn't wearing anything underneath. Whoa, what's with that body? Everyone's shocked. James's got a six-pack. Wow, you're really muscular. Aren't you totally ripped? As the room buzzed, Melissa handed me a shirt and glared at Ashley. Ashley, he earns $2 million a year, so he's not poor. This is an important time for him. What do you think you're doing? $2 million. The room buzzed again. Oh, come on, stop lying. This is that poor James. There's no way he makes that much. Yeah, how could he make that much? A poor guy in a tracksuit can't be earning that. Then Thomas, who was also in our class, spoke up. Hey, are you, really, that Iron Fist? Yeah, that's me. No way. I'm a fan. Can I get your autograph? Iron Fist is my boxing alias. In middle school, I had a rough time and thought, I want to become stronger. So, I joined the boxing club at high school to build physical strength. There, a senior member of the same club complimented me, saying I had great skills. And then, I was introduced to a boxing gym. Passed the pro test and started my career as a professional boxer. It's no wonder my classmates didn't recognize me. Compared to myself in middle school, I've grown taller and much more muscular, so it's understandable they didn't realize who I was. Recently, I've been achieving decent results as a boxer, and in fact, I had a match earlier today. Today's match was to get a right to challenge the current world champion, and I managed to win, so I will be able to give it a try. Now he's earning a solid income from prize money, so he's not the same guy he was in middle school. Melissa says this with a smug look for some reason, but she's right. This is the same Melissa who helped me countless times back in middle school. She continued to worry about me even after we graduated from middle school, and frequently kept in touch. Melissa became hooked on boxing after watching one of my matches in the boxing club I joined. And then she told me, "I'll become your trainer and make you a world champion," when I said I would turn pro. True to her word, Melissa now actively works as my personal trainer. Who's the one stuck in the past? Who is lame here? Get over it. Melissa's loud shout echoed throughout the room. In the now silent venue, the first person to move was Ashley. Hey, James, you make $2 million a year, right? Maybe I'll date you now, she said. Huh? Ashley, what are you talking about? Well, you're rich now and way more handsome than in middle school. James, you still like me? Right? She said this while putting her arm around mine and snuggling up to me. What makes her think I still like her? While I was oddly impressed by her audacity, I firmly replied, "No, I'm dating Melissa now." I don't like you, Ashley. At my words, someone snickered. Laughter rippled through the reunion venue. Ashley, her face red, stormed out, shouting, "I'm leaving," with Robert hurriedly chasing after her. Later, it turned out someone had filmed the whole incident, including Ashley throwing wine on me and cozying up to me once she realized I wasn't poor anymore. The video spread online. Ashley, who was still working as a model, was branded as a villainous model with a terrible personality and couldn't continue her modeling career. Robert, who was running a couple's YouTube channel with Ashley, saw their channel criticized and damaged because of the video's fallout. Eventually, they had to close the channel, and both Robert and Ashley became infamous in a bad way. Their personal information was leaked, and their home addresses were quickly identified, forcing them to stay at home all the time. I never expected them to end up like that. It really is true that you reap what you sow, I thought. Then came the day of my match against the world champion after rigorous training. Thanks to the incident at the reunion, it had become well known among my classmates that I was Iron Fist. Many of my middle school classmates had come to the venue, filling the seats with excitement. My opponent, Jack, was a legendary world champion with an undefeated record in 30 matches. Honestly, I wasn't sure if I could win. I believed our skills were evenly matched. But since I started boxing, my goal has always been to become the world champion. I'm definitely going to win, I thought, slapping my cheeks to pump myself up. The gong sounded, signaling the start of the match. Neither Jack nor I gave an inch, and the fight dragged on to the final 12th round. By the 12th round, our stamina was nearly gone, and both of us were breathing heavily. I had taken a straight punch to the face in the 9th round, barely getting up before the 10 count, but it had left me with significant damage. This is my last chance. The final round began. We both remained unyielding, and neither landed a decisive blow. 1 minute left. I heard Melissa saying, "This is my only chance," I thought, focusing on Jack. By this 12th round, I had figured out Jack's patterns. He favored a right straight punch, but his guard dropped for a split second after throwing it. I had to aim for that opening. 50 seconds left. Melissa's voice came again. I saw Jack's right hand move slightly. He's going for the right straight, I was sure. His glove came at my face with a speed that seemed impossible for the 12th round. I narrowly dodged it and quickly regained my stance. Then, with all my strength, I threw a right straight punch at Jack's face. It hit his face perfectly, and Jack fell down. 5, 6. The champion remained down during the referee's count. Please, stay down. I was completely exhausted and couldn't go any further. 9, 10. The gong rang out loudly. Did I win? The world champion Jack has been defeated. The new world champion is Iron Fist. Cheers erupted, and I couldn't help but shout, I did it. My dream of becoming the world champion had finally come true. An interviewer approached me. Thank you all for coming from so far away today. The audience erupted in cheers, shouting, whoa. I could see some fans crying as they looked at me. Today, I'd like to share a bit about myself. It might be hard to believe now, but I used to be really weak. I was beaten up by bullies and they took all my money from me. I was truly weak, both physically and mentally. Because of that, I had a tough time in middle school and ended up leaving my hometown for high school to get away. But in high school, I really wanted to change myself. That's when I started boxing. If there's anyone out there who feels like I did, I want to tell you to have a dream. Whether it's becoming a CEO, a soccer player, a teacher, a police officer, or a firefighter, it doesn't matter. Put your hand on your heart and find out what your dream is. And if possible, tell someone about it. I know how it feels to be mocked for your dreams, so you don't have to tell those kinds of people. Just tell someone you trust. And if you don't have anyone, you can even tell me. I promise I won't laugh. Human potential is limitless, and I'll prove that with my life. It doesn't matter where you are now. Just keep reciting that dream every day. I'm not saying that wishing alone will make it come true. Wish for it and do the mundane things every day. That's the only way to achieve something extraordinary. I truly support anyone who chases their dreams. Anyone can change because I did. The frustrations I felt in middle school drove me to become stronger. If you never give up and keep working hard, you can change yourself, and your dreams can come true. If my efforts can prove that, I want to keep striving. With gratitude to everyone who helped me along the way, I vowed to keep working hard. It was only a little while after that, on the day I achieved victory in 2 weight classes, I proposed to Melissa.